And a good day. Welcome. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. This is the program where we present topics that come to our minds as being pertinent to a larger discussion, and we invite you to share your takes at 1-800-585-9396, 800-585-9396. Debbie, I hope that you had a good weekend.
I did. I did. A lot of errands were done and got caught up for today, and I'm interested in how this show is going to unfold, Jerry, because we've already have a lot of Facebook activity, and I know that our listeners really want to partake in this conversation. So, dear listeners, we've got a very important topic planned for you. So maybe take down this number and jump in when you feel prompted by the Spirit at 1-800-585-9396.
That's right. We did a show, it's not been quite 2 weeks ago, and the show was simply titled, If You Had One Do-Over, What Would It Be? And we had a wonderful caller, a lady named Tina, call in, and she said that if she could go back and change one thing in her life, it would have been her gender reassignment surgery. She had gone from being surgically at least, from being a female to a male, but she was actually in the process of reversing that and had rediscovered and embraced the Catholic faith and was very, very joyful. It was just a wonderful conversation. But Debbie, as you'll recall, while the show wasn't about that topic that day, our call screener let us know that we had a number of calls from, including parents, off the air. They didn't want to go on the air because, again, that wasn't the topic of our conversation. But they have even children, teenagers, and kids in their lives, and other people who are going down this path or feel that they need to change their gender through a surgical procedure. So, Debbie, you and I decided that this might be worthy of a conversation. So, as you said, Debbie, this is an important topic, and we certainly want to invite our listeners' takes on this.
And we always take a look at this from your perspective, because you drive the show, dear listeners. So it's up to you to really introduce different takes on this and different experiences and just your wisdom on it, because we can learn and we can grow, and hopefully we walk away from this hour just with a better understanding of ourselves and how we are to be as Christians in the world, how we are to relate to one another, and how we are to help and support one another with a sincere sense of compassion. So this is an important topic, and it really is a sensitive topic, and I think we just need to really approach it as by way of leading with how Christ would view it. And so if we can do that, let's open up those phone lines and hear what you have to say. 1-800-585-9396. And also, too, Jerry, I think it's a great way to bring up that you can also text if you don't have the time to sit on the phone for maybe 5 minutes before you get on the air. If you want to text us and maybe leave your comment or your question, feel free to do that. You just have to text the letters EWTN to 55000. You wait for a response, then you type in your first name, your comment, or your question, and we'll be happy to read it on the air and maybe introduce it into the conversation at the appropriate time. Just keep in mind that data rates do apply or may apply depending on your service plan. So just wanted to say that up front so you're not shocked.
Right. Well, and again, some things we want to be sure to mention right away. And again, Debbie and I, we're not going to delve into the psychology of this issue, because there certainly must be as many reasons that a person feels the need to have I guess they call it gender reassignment surgery, as there are people who do it. And Debbie and I are not psychologists. We're not therapists. We want to have a discussion really from the standpoint of your experiences, dear listeners. If you know somebody, maybe you yourself are feeling that you need to go through this procedure. But we want to be sure to recognize immediately, as the Church has, Pope Francis even very recently, while saying that it was not proper for someone to go down this path, he reiterated the Church's teaching that every person, male or female, has an inherent dignity, Debbie, and needs to be treated with great love and compassion, but also truth at the same time. God and nature don't make mistakes. I think that's going to be basically one of our starting points right now. However, our intent is not to delve into the psychology, nor is it to judge somebody. I actually, some years ago, had an acquaintance who went from male to female through surgery, and I have not been in touch with this individual for a number of years, so I don't know how that all played out, but There are just a lot of dynamics here, Debbie, and we really just want to open this up for a lively conversation, looking at it hopefully from the church's standpoint, what the popes have said. And there's a great article, by the way, I want to point people to. It was published in the Catholic Spirit in the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis, and we have posted that on the take2show.com website. So if people want to read that, I believe that's the official newspaper of the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis.
I'm glad you said that, Jerry, about how we're going to approach this. And I think it's important that we do start the conversation and see how it all unfolds. And keep in mind, too, that I think it's important that we always lead with what's best for the soul. I mean, we're all trying to grow closer to God, hopefully. We're all trying to attain holiness, hopefully. And that's what really, we're not here by accident. We're here for a reason and a purpose. We're here to get united back to God, our Creator. And it's an interesting topic, Jerry. I think it deserves us to really look at this from all different angles and to really see what we learn from it. So 1-800-585-9396. That's the number to dial. Michael McCall, I believe, is call screening today. Matt is still not feeling well, so please keep Matt Gabinski in your prayers. We want him to get well, and so we need to ramp up the prayers just a little more if you can do that for us for Matt Gabinski. Rich Jesse is not, he's out today, but Jeff Burson is at the controls, but Michael McCall is call screening, and he's wonderful to talk to as well, so don't hesitate. 1-800-585-9396.
Yeah, we're going to get to a break here in a minute and then get to your phone calls. And again, this show was inspired largely because many of you called in and said you have someone in your life that you love who is feeling this need to have a gender change, if you will. The thing is here, I mean, as I said, God and nature do not make mistakes. Now, I understand, and we're definitely not going to get into this, that sometimes there are people born with there are the anomalies of how they're born physiologically and so forth, and that can be just it's an anomaly of nature. But we see from Scripture, God said male and female is how He created them. And one beautiful point that one of the articles I read pointed out, Debbie, is our bodies are not just this empty, hollow vessel that houses our soul, and then at the end of our lives, our bodies have no more use anymore. Kind of like the Virgin Mary. She wasn't just a vessel through which the Savior came and unimportant beyond that. Our bodies and our souls are inextricably linked together, and the gender that we are created with is the one that God intended for us to have. You've got the male-female complementarity, and that is only realized and lived out through the understanding of Scripture and the teachings of the Church. And we had a lot of activity, Debbie, as you know, on EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook page, and somebody by the name of Aaron said, EWTN, seriously? Meaning this conversation that we're having today. Only if this is to help others know God's divinity and His way. Well, Aaron, rest assured, we
That's
are
right.
entirely Catholic on this. And that means speaking the truth about who we are, made in the image and likeness of God,
That's
with
right.
our God-given gender or sex. And that also includes the fact that anyone who feels a need for whatever reason, and I believe it's confusion on their part psychologically, we can get into that for hours, but we also have to treat them with love and respect and compassion and the dignity that they have based on who they are, created in the image and likeness of God. So it's not an either or, Debbie, it's a both and.
Right. And here's the thing. Jerry, over the past year and a half, we've gotten that before where somebody would comment in and say, EWTN, really? You're really having a conversation like this? Of course, that we tackle complex and complicated and oftentimes even some distressing topics, because if we don't, where are you going to talk about it? That's the interesting, nobody has ever given me an answer, because in this PC culture that we're in, we don't get to talk about things. Everybody's holding it inside. And that's part of the problem. We're not talking about things in an honest, genuine way with a very Christian perspective. And so people don't know how to really grapple with these very complicated subjects that we are faced with. So we watch reality TV and we think that's facts. It's not. And so, yes, we're going to tackle them because it's important for us. We have to be out in the world as Christians, and we're interacting with every single situation that comes in our path. We have to have answers to the most difficult questions. And Jerry, I think it's important that we do approach all subjects with not holding back on anything, because it helps us, especially our young people who are listening to the show. And we have a lot of young people listening to the show that really can hear it from a Catholic perspective. So I think it's healthy.
Yeah, and I think that there is sometimes a very understandable aversion that we may have to conversations like this, or to individuals who make a decision such as this, and we can overlook or bypass or look beyond the fact that is a human being, someone who, again, may, through whatever circumstances, be of a mind that they have to do this. And really, as I said before, it does not biologically change anyone's gender. And there are studies that show that it creates a lot of other problems for people afterward. There's the biological issues, the hormones, the drugs, the trauma of the surgery. There's so much. We want to have this conversation with you. 1-800-585-9396. Give us a call.
"60 on 10 with Monsignor Charles Pope."
The third commandment, remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. Of all the commandments, it might seem that we would get this one right. After all, it commands us to rest one day. But so often we're off to our own pursuits. God asks us to take one day to stop, reflect, rejoice, spend time with Him and with our family. But so often we're running everywhere else. It's also a day for worship. The book of Leviticus says, 6 days work shall be done, but on the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest and a holy convocation. You shall do no work. It is the Sabbath of the Lord. And the book of Hebrews says that we should not neglect to meet together, as is a habit of some. And so again, we're asked by God to spend time reflecting and worshiping, and likewise spend time with our family. The third commandment, remember to keep holy the Sabbath day.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
The National Catholic Register is America's most complete Catholic news source, with a comprehensive view of the world from a distinctly Catholic perspective. For the latest issues, people, and events shaping the world as we know it, visit ncregister.com.
We know you like listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio, but have you thought about bringing them to your next event? No matter what type of event you're hosting, parish mission, conference, or retreat, trust Jerry and Debbie to make it come alive. Begin the process today of taking your presentation to the next level of success. For information on booking Jerry and Debbie, visit take2show.com, click on the J&D logo.
This is Bishop John Brungart of the Diocese of Dodge City.
This is Colin Donovan, Vice President for Theology.
This is Father Larry Richards, host of Open Line Thursday. Thanks for listening to EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. And we are looking for your takes today. We are talking about, we've titled the show, The Identity Search. And I want to, Debbie, here's the number, folks, 1-800-585-9396. This show was prompted by a caller, Tina, a couple of weeks ago, who had gone surgically from being a female to a male and is now in the process of reversing that. And Tina shared the great joy that she had in really just discovering her true identity and a rediscovery of her Catholic faith and so forth. And then we had a number of, I think, parents, Debbie, if I'm not mistaken, called. They didn't go on the air, but they said, please do a show on this, because even their kids and their teenagers are experiencing this gender confusion, if you will, really searching for who they are. And Pope Francis has addressed this, and I want to get back to this because very, very recently, just within the last 3 days, I believe, the Pope was aboard the papal plane. And here, I just want to quote from this article. It says, Pope Francis says Jesus would never turn away transgender faithful, and the priests today should accompany them spiritually, even if they undergo sex change operations, sin, and repent. Okay, do you see what's all contained in that phrase right there? If they have made this choice, but then discover the error that they have made and turn back to the loving mercy of God, then there's really no difference between that and any other. I mean, there are different degrees, venial mortal sins and all of this, but Debbie, there's no difference when it comes to God's mercy. Anybody, no matter what we have done, is
open to the mercy.
Is able to receive God's mercy.
Absolutely.
And now, here, the Pope went on to say this. I just want to say one other thing, then I'll let you comment. Francis drew a firm distinction between the need for priests to minister to transgender Catholics and what he called the, quote, nasty, end quote, tendency of schools to indoctrinate children with the idea that their gender is something that can be picked and chosen and changed. And that gets back to what we said before. Simply this: God creates us male or female, and that is our gender for life, and I would say into eternity, because we do know we believe in the resurrection of the body. So,
yeah, I mean, as you were talking about what the Pope said, Jerry, by the way, the other article that you quoted, did we post it on Take Two? Did we post that
Yes.
other article?
Yep.
Oh, we did. Okay, so that's for all of our listeners to go to take2show.com. You can go there as well. You can also call in if you'd like to jump in on this discussion we're having about an identity search. That's what we titled it, because that's what we are hearing about in the news, or when you turn on reality TV or any even show that's on, any sitcom that's on. They now have well-placed people with transgender mentalities. And it's interesting how now it's become something that is seen as we should just maybe normalize it or accept it. But are we really getting to the heart of it? That's, I think, the question I like to take away from this hour, Jerry, is, are we getting to the heart of this? Because at what point do we go back and say, wait a minute, we have to look at this from a spiritual standpoint. We have to look at this as it relates to our souls, and you were talking about that, Jerry, how we were created, and what is our bodies, how we were born, male or female. What does that mean for us in eternity? I mean, this is a complex issue, and it has ramifications. We know that. We know that people are struggling right now. We hear it. We read about it on statistics that people are struggling right now with this identity crisis, if you will, of knowing, being confused on who they really are. And it could cause horrible ramifications, very deep depression, psychological disturbances, all sorts of things. So we're very aware of that. The thing about it is, if we don't have the discussion, how do we know how to process this? I mean, we can't just accept sitcoms as the way of the land, and then we should just all accept it. So please weigh in on this. This is an important topic. 1-800-585-9396. So what are you taking away from what the Pope said, Jerry? What's the bottom line of what Pope Francis is really trying to tell us or teach us?
Well, I think it's, I believe it's Pope Francis being Pope Francis, and he is undoubtedly the Pope of mercy. And I'll tell you what, Debbie, I have done things in my life that if the mercy of God were not available, I would have no hope. And so I think I go back to Tina's call again. Tina had gone down this path and had this surgery and was taking steps to reverse it. And I don't even know if the church, this is for another conversation, if the church would tell someone they have to go to all of the trouble and expense to reverse it. I don't know what the church would say on that. I know the church would certainly discourage someone from doing it in the first place. But, I go back to how Tina had the joy. If you remember that call, Debbie, I thought it was so beautiful because we're all sinners in need of God's mercy.
Right.
And the church holds out the truth. Pope Francis was very strong, and especially in talking about how the schools are teaching this to kids at the youngest age. One of the articles I read pointed out that there was a couple, a husband and a wife, mother and father, who assisted their daughter between the ages of 2 and 5 to begin dressing like, I think it was a girl, to help her be dressing like a boy and acting like a boy. And the article went on to say that presumably she would have the sex change surgery at some point later in life. And I just thought, my jaw dropped. I thought, how could parents do something like that? And Pope Francis referenced that in his article. He talked here. Let me see if I can find the. He has a phrase for it here. What does he call it? Oh boy. It's something about colonization or so. Here it is, ideological colonization that is corrupting many parts of the world. So anyway, what I take away from Pope Francis's words is that he was very Catholic about what he said, but he reminds us all that mercy is the key ingredient to everything.
Right. Do you remember when Caitlyn Jenner went on the 2020 show, Diane Sawyer, and did the interview?
I didn't see it, no.
Okay, I did. I actually watched it. 17 million people tuned in. 17 million people. So what does that tell us? It tells us that there is a lot of maybe confusion about the topic itself. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's people are curious as to what makes a person have this. Everybody's knew Bruce Jenner from the, what is it? The Wheaties commercial, wasn't it? The Wheaties or the? Yeah,
an Olympic decathlon champion, and yeah,
exactly. And so now, what made him want to, or felt his whole life he was really he felt he was a female. I mean, so 17 million people tuned in to hear his story. And that's interesting in and of itself, because that proves that this is a topic worthy of us to discuss, because there's definitely a major confusion out there. And where is that confusion coming from? Is it from our own understanding of how we were created in the image and likeness of God, and what our purpose and role is here on earth? Maybe it's a medical issue. Who knows exactly? But we have to talk about it, because we're never going to understand it better so we can help other people. How can we even be compassionate, Jerry, if we don't even have the slightest understanding of what somebody's going through? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's why I said earlier, we have to look at this from the standpoint, we have to look into the soul of a person. We have to look into the soul of a person who has or performs an abortion. We have to look into the soul of a person who commits murder. We have to look into the soul. I mean, I hope people will look into my soul, and not look at the things that I do, but the person that I am. And so, and it may sound like we're just, treading lightly on this issue, folks, but again, it's the church's teaching that, compassion has to go along with truth. Speak the truth in love. And I want to invite people, if you know someone who has had sex change surgery, maybe you are an individual who is feeling, maybe you're sensing it within your mind or your heart that you are of the wrong sex, and that you feel a need to go through this procedure. But parents too, Debbie, this show was prompted again by a number of parents who called in off the air a couple of weeks ago and said, my child is expressing these desires. So we just want to have this conversation. We have presented the fact that this is not normal, it's not natural. There is something disordered about it. What that is really unique to each individual. The church has spoken out on it. Pope Francis says, so if someone does this and then repents and comes back, we must show mercy and compassion. So 1-800-585-9396.
And you have to wonder, Jerry, how much of it is the influences that are happening at the school setting, because we know now that in different schools, especially on the college campuses, there's a lot of ideas floating around that a lot of people entertain without even thinking of the consequences. Okay, I know we've got to go to a hard break in just about a minute, but we have a physician on the phone, Karen, and I'm wondering, do we take the break first, Jerry, or start with Karen? What do you want to do?
Yeah, well, we got less than a minute for the break, so we'll get to calls.
So Karen, so you want Karen to hold on then? Or we're taking Karen? Okay, Karen, please hold on, because Karen's a physician. We're going to take that break. But Jerry, can I give the phone number again? 1-800-585-9396. If you are even uncertain about this topic, if you're just like wondering, how do you even maybe even discuss it with your children, your grandchildren? Should you bring it up? Should you not? we want to hear from you. We're learning together on this. This is a difficult topic. It's very complicated, very complex, but we can do it together with God's help. Obviously, He's driving the show. 1-800-585-9396. We'll be right back, and we're going to go to Karen as soon as we come back from the break.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
You know, one time we needed this studio, and the crew was always complaining, Mother, you know, we can't do more than one program, and we need another studio. And I said, well, we don't have the money. And somebody said, well, we never have it, Mother. Why don't we start? And I thought, oh, okay. So I had our caretaker put white rags around a section of the yard that's 50 by 100. That's the studio. And I just kept them there. And about 8 bishops came down for Father Banyana's show. And one bishop said to me, what are those white rags? And I said, well, we need a studio, but I can't afford it. And I want to remind the Lord that's where it should be.
For more information on Mother Angelica, visit Religious Catalog at EWTNRC.com.
Rory's an incredibly fit young man in training with the Marines. One of his comrades is flat out chubby. During training, they had to do 60 burpees in 8 minutes. If you don't know what that is, Google it. It's a painful exercise. Marines were snickering at Rory's friend, and he was about to give up. Rory got right in his face and shouted above all the other voices, "You look at me. All you see is me. All you hear is my voice. You can do this." And he did. A week later, Rory's commander gave him the challenge. Everyone do 60 burpees in 8 minutes. Rory, you do 80 burpees in 6 minutes. At the end of his strength and unable to go on, his friend ran out of nowhere to his side. "Rory, you look at me. You can do this." And he did. When life's exhausting you and negative voices cause self-doubt to creep in, Jesus is there at your side, shouting at you, "You listen to me. All you hear is me. All you see is me. You can do this." Listen to him, friends. This is Chris Stefanik from RealLifeCatholic.com on EWTN Radio.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Thank you so much for being with us. Take 2 with Jerry and Debbie, and your takes we're going to get to right now. The identity search is what we're talking about today. How there are there's a growing number of people who feel that they are one gender trapped in the body of a different gender. The world is certainly not only assisting them in making that transition, but really promoting and celebrating it. Is it in the best interest of a person? Of course, I would say no. I'm sure Debbie would agree with that. Pope Francis has spoken. By the way, just real quickly, Karen, before we get to you, Pope Francis said he concluded on the papal plane the other day by begging reporters who were with him there, please don't write "the Pope blesses trans," please. Because Pope Francis, I think, is even becoming aware of the fact that he is misquoted and taken out of context many times. So, okay, we're going to go to your calls. Karen, thank you for your patience during the break there, listening to EWTN Radio on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Karen. Driving through Iowa. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah.
What I have not heard anyone discuss when we start discussing these issues is that there are certain situations where the genotype or the DNA of a person, for whatever reason, is not expressed in the physical body. And one that is the most known is called androgen insensitivity. So that person is going to have an XY chromosome and yet have a female-appearing body. Now, they don't have all of the female genitalia. They don't have a uterus or ovaries. Usually are born with the testicles up inside the abdominal cavity, and they have to be removed or they will cause cancer. So I think we have to talk about some of the conditions under which there really is a biological very well known biological reason for that I don't want to say gender dysphoria. That's more of a psychological event, but it's not crystal clear. And there's also people born with what is called ambiguous genitalia. You can't tell at birth if that little one is a boy or a girl. So I think I haven't heard any of us talk about those issues, and I know they're rare. I've been an OBGYN for about 25 years, and I've seen maybe 3 or 4 of those individuals, so it's not common. But I think we have to be careful about saying your gender assignment at birth is your true gender. I think that's an area where we're subject to criticism, legitimate criticism. I guess that's my concern.
Yeah, Karen, God bless you for your service as an OBGYN, first of all, and thanks for calling. You actually put a name to what I didn't know what was called at the start of the show. I used the word anomaly. I said we're setting aside the fact, and I didn't know quite how to phrase it because I don't know that terminology, but I was referring to exactly what you're saying. There are cases where, and this is maybe you could. I'm sure you could explain this better. Where nature, I said God and nature don't make mistakes. Well, I guess sometimes through nature this may happen through whatever circumstances. But we did make that point at the start of the show, and I think you mentioned that's just a really, really tiny percentage. But I think setting that aside, and I'd love your comments on this. I think most of what we're talking about here today is where there isn't that question of which gender a person is. They just feel like they are the opposite gender. Is that safe to say, Karen, do you think?
Yes, absolutely. And it is certainly the big issue. I guess my concern is that we are clear scientifically, that we are clear when we speak about the gender dysphoria and gender what's the word you were using? When people assign gender assignment. I just think it's really important to keep our credibility, that we be absolutely careful scientifically, and that's the reason I call. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense, Karen. But here's the thing and you said it's very rare in the case that it's
yes.
Biologically something that's an issue. So how do you, I guess, I'm gonna probably Karen, I'm going to probably very sloppily say this, and please forgive me for saying it this way, but how do you determine if somebody is biologically have this issue or somebody else who may just be confused or it's a choice? How do you decipher?
There's been clear physical evidence. It's unquestionable. It's unquestionable.
Oh, no, I understand that, but I'm talking about from the perspective of just a person encountering that person just in the general public. I mean, the person's not going to wear a sign that says, I'm biologically, I have this issue. So how do you know when you're approaching a person if they have this medical condition, or they have something that they are just maybe psychologically or emotionally confused about?
Yeah.
See, you see what I'm saying?
I think they have to tell you. Yeah, they have to tell you. Yeah.
Right, and that's what's so unfortunate about this topic is we don't really get to the heart of it, because I think if somebody really does have this biological issue, this medical issue, there would be a very compassionate tone to the topic.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree.
Sure.
And just as a point of human interest, the patient that I had who had androgen insensitivity, or the young girl did not know. She had not been told. She was 17 years old. She had not been told that she was XY chromosome, because her parents, in all good faith, were simple people and didn't really understand it themselves. So that it is a different issue. It's a physical, biological issue that I don't know how. I know her struggle, but I don't know how it would fit into the context of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, Karen, you have helped to actually clarify what we're talking about, because again, sometimes, and as like I said, we mentioned this at the start of the show. I was sloppier than Debbie, actually, because I didn't know what to call it. But there are these anomalies of nature sometimes. So I think we can move forward here, Karen. Thanks for the call, Karen. By the way,
yes, thank you, and thank you for your work.
We can move forward, with the understanding that what we're talking about here is someone who just there's no biological question of what gender transgender they are, but then psychologically or emotionally, as Debbie said, at some point in their life, they say, well, I really believe that I am the other sex, and then they take steps to go in that direction. So, Karen, thanks so much for the call.
Yes,
anybody else want to weigh in on this? 1-800-585-9396.
That brings up a good point, though. If I was raising children again, my children are grown, but if one of my if my child came to me and said that they were confused about their identity and what they were born, maybe that's a good point. I would start out medically to rule out if there's any medical issue that's happening with the chromosomes or whatever it is. So we rule out that, and let's say that's taken off the table because Karen says it's rare. So that's taken off the table. Then as a parent, I would probably look into what psychologically is going on, emotionally going on, to help that child through, because maybe there is something that they are just paralyzed with, and so that's interesting. I'd be curious to see if any parents would call in and maybe share what their experience is. Okay, so let's move right along to Meryl, listening in EWTN Radio in San Bernardino, California, on YouTube. Hi, Meryl. Welcome to Take Two.
Hi. I experienced something while going to a simple business. An ice cream parlor, and when you hear ice cream, you think children. And obviously, when I walked into the ice cream parlor, there were children everywhere. They use it for parties and everything. And I was taken aback when the host was obviously a transgender, and I was deeply concerned because the children were obviously exposed to this. And there were parents, there were adults with these children, and I wondered, how do the parents approach this with the children? It seemed to me like it was normal to them.
Right.
And
Can I just get clarification for all of us, Meryl? Well, you're saying the host. You're saying the business owner or the host of the party. So this is a parent friend or what?
When you, the host, the waiter, when you ask for a table, the host gives you a table, and the host was a transgender.
Got you. And so this transgender person was working and was taking care of this party that had mostly children. It's a children's place.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you're wondering what was first of all, the perception of how the families perceived it, how the kids understood it. Maybe they didn't even notice? Was it very obvious that the person was transgender?
Yes, he was a man, and he had women parts on his body, very obvious and very visible.
Well, this is just my off-the-cuff comment as a parent. That would absolutely distress me beyond belief if my child had to be exposed that way, because if as a parent, I want to be able to tell my children or educate my children in my home first. I don't want them to have to experience things and then I have to try to educate them on the fly. That to me doesn't work. So that would distress me, but I don't know how you would even deal with it, because that person has a right to work and that establishment hired that person. So that person does. Yeah. So it's a very, here we go again, a very complicated issue. Jerry?
No, I think the answer is simple. If someone was uncomfortable around that, again, without disrespecting or dishonoring the dignity of this individual, maybe just say, kids, if you're there with your 2, 3, or 4 kids, just say, we're going to pick another time to come and get some ice cream, but something's come up, and I think we need to go right now, and just not make a big to-do out of it. And like you said, Debbie, just parents are the first and primary educators of their children, and Pope Francis even, on one of his recent, when he went to the former Soviet Republic of Georgia, he seems to be speaking about this and other similar issues quite frequently, and he even denounced how some donors, and he even included an example in his native country of Argentina, have conditioned their financial assistance to schools. They've tied that to the schools using certain textbooks that, of course, espouse ideologies like this. So it's not unusual. It's not surprising that this kind of thing is being, the kids are being exposed to this kind of thing, I guess. But Meryl, did you have anything else to say? Sorry about that.
So,
Meryl,
it's a deep concern that the children. It seemed to me that the business was comfortable with it because the whole restaurant was filled with children, and it didn't seem to affect them. It affected me, and I didn't want to go back there again. So,
right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, Meryl, before you go, it's something that you said, too, at the beginning, and I think I might have cut you off a little bit, and I apologize. You had said something to the effect that it seemed so normal, or it was so normal. It goes back to what I'm saying about reality TV and sitcoms. They've made it very normal for every type of situation. Now, let's put aside what Karen had shared about being a biological medical condition, an issue. Let's put that rare thing aside. For the majority of this population, it's being really kind of forced on us that it's normal, and that I think that's maybe the question: should we or shouldn't we accept it as it being a normal part of life, or should we try to get to the core issue and figure out maybe this person really doesn't have to live that way. This person maybe can live in alignment with their biological sex that they were born at. So I think what you had to say was actually very interesting, and I would honestly, if it were me, I'd be curious to the business owner if you are the first parent that was concerned about it. I would be curious. For me, I would probably go up to the business owner and just say, I'm just curious. What is the reaction of people? Are they just very accepting, or have you noticed a decline in your patrons because of the fact that this is a little bit uneasy for parents to have to educate their children while they're supposed to be at an ice cream party? I mean, I think I don't know. I don't think the two really fit, but you know what I'm saying? It's very complicated, Meryl, but anything we said, maybe you want to just comment on before we move on to the next caller?
No, I think this is a topic that needs to be addressed, and I appreciate the church's stance on addressing it according to the church's teaching. So thank you very much.
Thank
you, Meryl. Thank you, Meryl, for contributing to the discussion. 1-800-585-9396. Keep your radio dial tuned right here to EWTN Radio. Dr. Ray Garendi, the doctor is in, follows me and Debbie right here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. The doctor is in, coming up in the next hour right here on EWTN Radio. Okay, we continue with our calls. Kathy, thanks for holding on there, Kathy, listening to EWTN Radio in Massachusetts on the Station of the Cross. Hello, Kathy. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, Jerry and Debbie. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm a little nervous, so I have so much to say. I really studied this because I wanted to have myself as a Catholic a compassionate, real scientific view of this. So I've looked at many, many sources, so forgive me if I rattle some stuff off. First of all, the doctor calling in sounded like a wonderful person, and she spoke about it being rare. And I just want to point out, like Debbie did, that I think there's been compassionate care, both physically and psychologically, for these rare cases for many, many years. The new part of it is that what's new is that there's not only a mindset from Hollywood, like Debbie said about the shows and this and that, but it's being imposed even with legislation on our society, on our states, as if it's a normal occurrence to the point that it could be considered a choice. Now, this is where unbelievable confusion is happening to young people, and that's what's new, Debbie. The rare, look, I know a lot about running in the Olympics, and there's a particular runner that ran in the Olympics this time, Caster Semenya. And Caster supposedly reportedly has that condition where they're, born without anything appearing on the outside, but inside had testes and things inside, so lived her whole life with this level of testosterone. But she's able to run with the heavy voice and the Adam's apple and the huge muscles with other women who have sacrificed so much to get to their level in the sport. And any sport that has to do with speed and strength, a man will almost always dominate. So that's just an aside. I have to get back to this. We have legislation in Massachusetts, and I talked to a representative back and forth, long emails, using only scientific facts, no religious at all. because I don't know, forgive me, what the final thing is with the legislation, but I think they signed it. But anyway, in Massachusetts, they were trying to make it illegal for parents or psychologists or psychiatrists to help a child under 18, we're talking not a legal adult, to allow them to be comfortable with their birth biological sex. Only what would be considered affirming of the transgender confusion would be allowed. So I had a back and forth talking about Walt Heyer from SexChangeRegret.com, who lived as a woman for several years, and this dear man, through grace of God and a good psychologist, realized that he was so wounded as a young child, being dressed in a little purple dress by his grandmother, that he finally got to it. And he is now happily married as a man and going the world over to say, be careful. There are at least 5 surgeons in the world who are particularly for those who want to reverse this surgery. So why would we make it illegal for someone under 18 to allow them to be comfortable with their biological sex, if not for, as Pope Francis says, this ideological colonization, this imposing rare conditions for reasons that are not right on whole populations? And I have a lot more to say, but I'll let you interject. I'm so sorry.
No, Kathy, you did your homework, and you're very well prepared, and keep talking on this, and you should be a voice in your community to help with things. Absolutely.
I tried, Debbie, back and forth with this particular rep here in Massachusetts, using every site, every single site, even talking about the fact that, and he disagreed with me because it went into other areas like same-sex attraction. I said, look, the point is that if a young person wants to even have help with that, they need to be allowed, because let's face it, the cases of AIDS in our country is still within that sad demographic of teen years to young adults. He absolutely denied me that it was true, and I sent him all the government stats, literally from government websites, and he, oh, well, I guess I'm wrong. Yes, you're wrong.
But Kathy, here's the thing. You can use this in really any argument that has to do with when Satan wants to come in and divide and confuse. You can use this argument even with abortion. And let me tell you why. What is the harm in letting a mother, when she's walking into an abortion clinic, letting her have an ultrasound? What's the harm? The harm is that mother probably won't have that abortion. Anybody with okay, but yet that's being stopped. That's being stopped because that's what Satan wants to do, to divide and to make sure that the ones who are seeking the financial gain doesn't get stopped, because God forbid you should give the truth, because that'll stop everybody from getting their financial portion of it. So the truth has to come out, and that's why, Kathy, I pray that you continue with your voice. Eventually, you will meet somebody that will accept some part of that truth that you are expressing.
One more point to make. I'm so sorry. One more point.
That's okay.
And like I said, I try to read a lot of different things, not just religious, not to get the science, And we know from Johns Hopkins University, the wonderful doctor there who actually was part of the transgender surgeries. After 20 years of something of doing this, he finally said, you know what, as a doctor, the outcomes they're not good. So they're either the same or worse, suicidal, this and that, addiction. And so he stopped doing them, and now he's a voice for common sense. So one more point. Pediatricians, even those who are pro-trans, meaning at some point to be able to allow transition, there are pediatricians out there, and some of the clinicians are speaking anonymously. Parents are coming in because of this pressure from Hollywood TV and their peers, and teachers in the education union are coming into pediatricians' office. Do you know it's over 200% jump in transgender confusions for children? It's over 200%.
Wow.
And so the pediatricians, even those who are pro-trans, are saying to the parents, look, can we do a wait and see? That's the best thing for your child, instead of pumping them full with hormones that could damage their fertility the rest of their lives. If after 18, as an adult, they need to just, really look into this, let's try to affirm their biological sex while they're children. And the parents refuse and walk out and try to find another doctor. So what's happening is, when we're talking about a diabolical nature to this, even parents are being influenced as if it's the better thing for their child, Deb.
Right.
Well, Kathy, thanks for all that you contributed here. We really you like Debbie said, you're passionate about this. You've done a lot of research, and thanks for your phone call. We want to try to get to another call or two if we can. I just wanted to mention that the article we posted on take2show.com from the Catholic Spirit in the Archdiocese of St. Paul and Minneapolis quotes Dr. Paul McHugh, is who you're talking about, Kathy. He's the head of the psychiatry department at Johns Hopkins University, and he stopped allowing sex change or reassignment surgeries at the university hospital after research and experience showed that the surgeries in which men sought to become women did not cure underlying psychological problems present prior to surgery, and that the desire for the surgery was instead the byproduct of other psychological and sexual disorders. Those are the words of Dr. Paul McHugh. So, folks, you can read that article at take2show.com. I want to get over to Robin real quick. Robin in San Antonio, listening to EWTN Radio and Guadalupe Radio. We got about a minute and a half here, Robin. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you this morning? I'll talk fast.
Doing well.
Here's
Yep.
here's my situation. As a good Christian woman, and I believe that we should show compassion and understanding to these people, but addressing the ice cream parlor situation, while they are trying to figure things out and we're trying to lead them back into their faith, are we not supposed to be stewards of goodwill and compassion? And so therefore, what are those people supposed to do while we are nurturing and helping them back into their faith? Are they supposed to not be in the public?
Here, let me, Robin, let me jump in because of time. I want to again refer people to the article from the Catholic Spirit, the Archdiocese of St. Paul and Minneapolis. It is on take2show.com, and this was written by Jason Adkins, I believe. But here's the final section. It's called Truth and Love. I just want to read this because it's beautiful. God loves every person who identifies as transgender, as well as their allies fighting for what they believe to be their rights and dignity. The Church must actively extend the mercy of Jesus Christ and the healing of compassion he brings to all people. This includes contesting destructive social trends, imprudent public policy, and harmful ideology. So again, bringing the truth to bear, but doing so with great compassion. But here, this is the Take Two show line from this article. Yet we also need to do something in the lives of real people. This requires not just talk, but an account with actual people who struggle with gender identity confusion or sexual brokenness. Debbie, that sums up our approach here on Take Two, I believe.
It does. It absolutely does. I mean, we went back to the beginning of the show here where we said that this is a very complex subject. We really do have to be rooted in prayer and in understanding of ourselves first, because that's the important thing. But we have to speak the truth in charity and in clarity. And so please keep talking about this because we could help one another. Tomorrow's about jealousy. Until then, well, have a beautiful and blessed day. See you tomorrow.